And while I was here, I wrote 168 movies.
Wow.
While I was here. So
Damn.
now I own 168 movies. The Lawrence Taylor miniseries with Sony is what I'm doing. I just wrote the Straight Outta Compton spinoff. During that time, produced a movie with James Cameron, Keanu Reeves, and Halle Berry, Mark Wahlberg. I'm writing a project called 301 Racing, which is about the first black IndyCar company. So you've seen Pimp My Ride?
Yeah.
So Exhibit, the guy, his name was Mark Lauder, who was the guy who was building all those cars.
Yeah.
And Exhibit,
I used to watch the shit out of that
yeah,
show.
Exhibit got involved with that, but that guy had an IndyCar company too.
The guy is Mark, the guy that owns West Coast Customs.
He owned 301 Racing, but they did all the they're the ones who were doing all that customization
Right.
at that time for
Okay.
Mark Wahlberg and all these guys, right?
Yeah.
So that movie will be starring Mark Wahlberg and Michael B. Jordan. I'm writing that now currently too. All of it. I mean, we've been doing a lot of cool stuff in Idaho so far.
Nice, man.
So it's been a busy couple years here, but
Yeah.
it's nice.
It's a growing place.
And you know where you guys would connect is from Wisconsin originally.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
From Madison.
Yeah.
Where are you from?
I'm not from Wisconsin, but I'm a Packers, Brewers, Badgers fan. And
Oh,
my
okay.
family is Norwegian and Danish. And when they first came over, it was like Wisconsin, Eastern
Yeah.
Montana, North Dakota,
Mm-hmm.
those whole areas. And my favorite place to go visit, my buddy Luke's family is from Lake, Eau Claire,
Oh,
Lake
yeah,
Wissota area.
Uh-huh.
And
My father's from Chippewa.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, right next. Well, he lived in Eau Claire forever, but yeah, he was born in Chippewa.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
going to visit, the most beautiful place is Lake Wissota that I've ever seen. It's so beautiful, and the people there are so nice, and
Especially in the fall.
yeah.
It's really pretty there.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, right about now when the leaves are changing and everything. Oh yeah, here we go.
Yeah, we're gonna get you.
Okay,
Make
cool.
love to that.
Right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can adjust it. You know. Yeah, let's get
Right. Cool. You guys got a nice little setup here.
Thanks.
You like the dojo wall?
Oh yeah, that's cool. So this is where the magic happens.
This is it. This is it, man. Just, connecting with people, hearing their stories, trying to get people unplugged from the matrix.
Uh-huh.
The world's changing real fast. And so if you're not keeping up, you're going to get rendered obsolete.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what our whole purpose is, just meet with like-minded people that are doing big things. I'll be honest. I mean, you're probably one of the most excited people that we've had. Just from our brief interaction, holy shit! I was just.
It's been a journey.
Where did you guys meet at?
We met Halloween over there on
Yeah.
What's the name of that place?
Harrison.
Oh,
yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
Man, nice. That place is really cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
especially during that time of the year.
Yeah.
I mean.
And do you know Oscar?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does my chiropractic and stuff.
Okay. So yeah, I knew you're what, Jen?
Yeah, Jen's my
So I
wife.
knew that because I met her at the baby shower.
Okay.
And but I didn't know. I didn't know if she was more connected than you. But it sounds like you guys are both. So.
Oh yeah, we're a pair, a team partnership. It's she's from here. She's from Boise, so I met her here when I moved out here.
Oh,
So,
and then
and
okay,
then we had a
so
child.
Lockdown.
Yeah. Mhm.
Nice, but great place.
Yeah, it's a great place to raise your family.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
a
I
beautiful,
think so, too.
beautiful town. But it's also a lot like Madison, where I come from.
Oh, really?
Difference is the rivers here. We have lakes. So if you go to Madison, our capital is right in the center, and then there's lakes all around it.
Really?
So it's a lot like here. Yeah, I think we're maybe a couple thousand, 100,000 people more. But
Now is Wisconsin the name of it's like the place of 1,000 lakes or something? Is that
oh
that, or
no,
is
that's
that-
Minnesota 10,000. But
Close.
actually, Wisconsin has more lakes than
Yeah.
Minnesota.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
About 5,000 more.
5,000 lakes?
Yeah, more than Minnesota. So we have around 15,000 lakes.
Yeah. Idaho has,
Whoa.
I think, 2,200 mountainous lakes.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So Idaho's got a good amount too, but not like Wisconsin.
Yeah, no way. Holy cow. What constitutes a lake must be like the size, acreage.
Yeah, I don't know how that works.
Oh, but that's interesting.
Yeah. I grew up, out there farming and on ranches and stuff. When I started cutting meat when I was 12 years old. That was my first job.
Wow.
No way.
Yeah.
So just harvesting cows?
Yeah,
or?
man. Yeah,
A lot of
harvesting
loggers
cows.
out that way too.
A lot of
You ever
loggers.
do that?
Yeah, we will. We cut down plots, but it was for like wood burning purposes. You know, a lot of people heat their houses with wood out there.
Yeah.
So yeah, we would do some of that. You know, go out the night before, get drinking, and then the next day it was hell. But
Yeah, Wisconsin, big drinking.
Yeah.
I remember.
it's a culture, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you leave your drink on the bar there, and you turn back around. Like whatever that bartender's got in their hand, they're gonna throw it in your drink, and next thing you know, you're sauced up. You just don't leave your drink on the bar there, you know.
It's
Man,
just the culture. What?
It's
I
just
mean,
the culture.
From especially like the cold, probably nothing to do.
It's
Very
like
working class people.
Yeah,
So,
6 months out of the year is winter.
yes.
So like
Oh,
it's all
Christ.
growing up, you know, it's house parties and you know, you go to I started going to the bar when I was like 16.
Wow.
So like a lot of those places up north, Wisconsin stuff, they don't have rules. It's like the Wild West up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Remember, I told you that me and my friends dined and dished. We accidentally stole the neighbor's car because it was a white BMW too, and we went and turned ourselves in. And the cops were like, "Oh, it's all cool, man. We do like they were just like, hey, go like clear things up with the people that you did wrong to." They're like, "We do dumb shit when we get fucked up too." And I was like, "Dude,
What?
these are the coolest fucking cops ever, dude."
Wow,
Yeah.
man, that's wild.
Yeah.
So when did you first like get out of Wisconsin or Madison?
18.
At 18.
Well, it was a little bit okay. So how this goes is I worked in Wisconsin when I was 18 throwing garbage, but then I had a side business where I'd go out at night and we were doing like what kids are doing now we would rent cameras, go to the clubs. We couldn't get in, so we just sit outside all night and just talk to people and ask questions.
No way.
Yeah. And then we started
That's
writing
awesome.
comedy skits and like intertwining that with the content. And then what we'd do is we'd create like music videos and we'd do commercials because it was all DVD based.
Yeah.
So we had all these DVD burners. We'd go home, edit. Final Cut was like the first editing software,
Yeah,
but nobody knew how to really use it back then.
Right.
This is 2003. So we started doing that. Mom and pop stores going in their stores and like, hey, can we put this in your store? Or, hey, we'll do a commercial for you for
No
a couple
way.
$100. Yeah, and that's how it blew up.
So instead of like, you know, a musical artist, you know, selling their CDs on the street, you were selling videos.
Right. Yeah.
Damn.
So it was like the first time too at that time where people could actually see themselves because this is before Facebook or YouTube
Yeah.
wasn't even out
Yeah.
yet. So that's how we were getting our name out there and eventually just like spread all over the Midwest.
No way.
And yeah, it was like YouTube came out and we had like 300,000 views, which was a lot for us at the
Yeah.
time. And with no marketing or anything, we were like, wow, well, this is big.
Yeah.
And it kind of just over time, you know, you have people that you're doing it with, they start having families or, you know, life gets a little bit serious.
Of course.
And Dwayne Wade, he was out at Marquette at the time. So we started doing his birthday parties and the events that he was like having. And then when he got drafted, it was like, you know.
No
Yeah.
way. Yeah,
Yeah.
see how this shit's going? Like,
Yeah,
dude,
yeah.
like
So,
the connections are wild.
Yeah, so we did his birthday party, and then after that, it got even bigger because he turned into a superstar, right?
Right.
So it's a funny story. I ran into him when we were down in Chicago. We were going to a club called The Buzz, right?
Yeah.
So I'm standing outside. I have like a couple girls by me, and he walks by, and he's like, hey, man, what's up? And I'm like, what's up? Where you going? He's like, come on. And we like just cut the whole line, and we walk in. They're like, what's up, superstar? I'm like, I'm not a super, I'm a cameraman, but yeah. You know, but anyways, we get in there.
I'll take it.
Yeah, I'll take it. We get in there. I'm like, oh, this is going to be great, right? So the girls are like, we're going to go to the bar and get a drink. I'm like, let's go in the VIP, like bottles all over in there,
Yeah.
right? And we get in there, and like 2 minutes later, there's a fight between Dwayne Wade's people and some guy in the audience.
Yeah.
So they're like throwing bottles. We get kicked out. I'm sitting on the street, me and Dwayne Wade, and I look up at him, you tall guy, and I say, man, you fucking up, bro. And he's like, looks at me, he looks around. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing out here? And he's like, yeah, you're right. And he like goes and gets in his sports car and takes off. And that was the last time I ever seen him.
Shut up.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
was in Chicago.
I was in Chicago. And I sat out there all night like waiting for these girls to come out because they had went to the bar to go get drinks.
Was that before he was in the Heat?
He just, it was like maybe the year he won like his first All-Star game.
No way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you were telling him, dude, you're
Yeah,
pissing this
yeah,
away.
dude. Yeah, like what are you doing with these guys?
Yeah,
You
getting
know?
in fights and shit like that. You're a
Yeah.
superstar. You got so much talent. And,
Yeah, man. It's just
Damn.
like sometimes people need to hear that truth.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
You know.
For
So
sure.
after that, moved down to Atlanta. I worked for the city for like years after, for a couple years, and then
The city of Atlanta?
No, for city of Madison.
Oh,
And then the Connect DVD was what it was called, Milwaukee's Connect DVD, and that kind of fell apart. Like people went their own ways. There was like inner turmoil too,
Sure.
like with the people. When you're with people
Jealousy,
all the time,
resentment.
you just get sick of them because you're like sleeping on like hotel floors with these people. You're with them all the time, traveling and doing things. You just kind of like all of a sudden, it's like being in a relationship. You're just like, man, before this ruins your friendship, we got to get out of here. But so I threw garbage for a little bit longer with the city and just stacked up my bread. Right. I had like a little Mitsubishi like Mirage, like
nice
4-door. It was little. It was like a 4-cylinder. No cell phone at this time. Like I didn't even have a cell phone. So I packed up that car.
This is in the 2000s.
Yeah, this is like 2008 or 9, right? So I pack up my car with all the stuff I could fit in it, and I just drive in the middle of the night, like all the way to Atlanta. And I get there, and I like didn't have a crib for like 2 days. So I finally found a place that would rent to me, without a job, just like a down payment, and moved into like a little studio, no furniture. Slept on the floor and went out and got a job doing like refinances for this company.
Wow.
And while I was doing that, though, this is one thing about networking that I learned young.
Yeah.
From doing the Connect DVD, it's like the bouncers are going to be the gateway to the fun, right? And if you don't have a lot of money, get to know all the bouncers.
Yeah.
Because then they're going to let you get in if there's a cover. They're going to introduce you to people, right?
The friends. Right.
Yeah, so as soon as I got the place, I took $20, went and bought a pack of cigarettes, and went down to Atlantic Station, was what it was called at the time. I'm not sure what it is now. But went down there, and there was a club called 10 Pin that was owned by Ashton Kutcher at the time.
Wow.
So I get there, and I just started handing out cigarettes to bouncers. Hey, man, what's up, man? Da-da-da. And I sat out there all night for like 3 days. Right?
Genius.
Yeah, 3 days. And every time I come back, man, what's up? Oh, man, I got to smoke for you. Because I didn't have a lot of money.
Right.
But I had cigarettes.
Yeah.
So we smoked some cigarettes together and get to talking. And eventually they're like, man, come on. Come on in here. I want to introduce you to like the dude who's promoting this spot. So I'm like, all right, cool. So we go up in there, and one of my guys, Chris, his name's Chris Jones, and he's like a big time promoter at this time. He had like 9 clubs down there.
Wow.
Like they had like Primal, Dolce House, they had Geisha House, or Dolce Geisha House, 10 Pin, just a bunch of freaking clubs down there, right? So I'm like hanging out with him, but still not making a whole lot of money because I'm working at this refinance company that pays you like $7 an hour unless you close loans.
Right.
So
and this was like 2008, 2009. So
it's like when the shit hit the fan too.
Yeah.
So a lot of people were doing like the FHA loans or whatever. And
I think they're still doing those.
yeah, like so pretty much these people you're working for are like scumbags too, because they're like capitalizing on all the people that can't get refinances.
Sharks.
Yeah. So at this time, my roommate, who was like another guy, ended up moving in with. Like we moved in together. He moved in, and he was actually from Madison, and he was like training to be an MMA fighter. So like me and this dude just like every night go to the gym, and like he was like number 2 in the world in Lay Thai. Now he works for the FBI.
Whoa.
And at the time, he was changed tires on cars and shit at one of them like places.
Yeah.
But anyways, he was just, great mentor. He's older than me, but like it was just his work ethic, right?
Yeah.
So he taught me how to fight. So we ended up like going around and like traveling with this sports team he was with, doing like MMA up in like Washington, D.C. and like Tallahassee and all over the East Coast.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So at this time, though, back to the guy who promoted, because he became like one of my best friends over time. He actually comes up to me one day, we're in the club, and he's like, hey, man, what you doing tomorrow? I was like, nothing. He's like, you want to make some money? I'm like, yeah. He's like, I need you to work this door for this club, that I'm promoting. And like, I'm going to be inside. I was like, all right, cool. So I sit outside, and he's like, just charge him $5 to get in. Well, I'm a broke guy. So I'm like, fuck that. I'm charging $20 to get in.
Oh.
So I'm like, I'm like holding up.
for you, 50 for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I'm holding up lines. People are like, it ain't nobody in there, but it looks big.
Oh,
so I'm like,
God, really?
So I'm like holding up lines, and like people are like, man, it says on the flyer $10 or $5 or whatever. And I'm like, well, that's not the price. It's like, it's past midnight or whatever.
Yeah.
So anyways, all night I'm doing that, and we had probably like 300 people in there or something like that. And he comes out and he's like, man, I lost money tonight. And I like sitting there, I'm broke, bro. So like in my mind, I'm like, man, I need this money. I could just give him his money.
Right.
But then I'm like, man, we're rich, right? And he's like, oh, he's like, you my guy.
Hell yeah.
So after that, he like opened up a ton of things in Atlanta for me.
Nice.
And he's actually married to Lawrence Taylor's daughter now. And that's how I ended up getting the Lawrence Taylor miniseries. And now I'm writing that with Sony. So
That's awesome.
yeah, so it's just
wow.
Yeah,
Holy, like quantum moments.
right. It's like these moments of decisions that you need to make. Of like,
Exactly.
a lot of people make the bad decisions. It's
Higher
like,
or lower.
Yeah, keep the money
decision.
instead of
yeah, right.
building that
Instead of building that
relationship.
relationship, and for me, it was like, okay, shit ain't always gonna be easy, but if you just keep going on that path and you don't like step away from that, like this direction or this direction, it leads you to like where you are now.
Because it's almost like your mind made you think you need the money, but in reality, you had everything you needed.
Right. Yeah.
But by doing the right thing, like it opened up so many doors and changed your life.
And that was what now? Like that was what's the year now? That was 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So
One thing that you brought up too that made me think about, that time is I didn't have texting. My mom bought me a cell phone, but she didn't pay for texting. And it's so weird to like, and then I even went even deeper back into 4th grade when I saved up all of my money so I could buy a pager. And I remember like walking into school with the pager hooked on my hip, like, what's up, ladies?
We used to wear
911.
Hey,
Gotta go.
we used to wear them, but they didn't work.
Oh, me too! Oh my god, that was mine. Yeah, mine didn't work.
The only person that ever paged me was my mom.
And then remember 1-800-COLLECT, dude. You had to go in.
Oh,
You
yeah.
used to collect calls.
Yeah, man, we used to go fishing and we'd do the collect call, but we'd tell our mom, we'd say the address, like, go pick us up at da-da-da, and then hang up. So we didn't have to get charged.
Dude, that's like that commercial. Hey, it's Bob, it's a baby, it's a boy. Or whatever.
Oh my lord, yeah, man. That's so
so
good. Oh
Yeah,
my
man.
gosh. Yeah, just spell the address.
Yeah, just hang up real quick. And because one time my mom picked up, we're like, Mom, like you're supposed to just come and get us, But yeah, so then I was in Atlanta for a couple years, and when I was working at this refinance company, this woman calls me and she's like, hey, like my husband passed away. I have 3 kids. I need to refinance my house. She had like a really nice house too in her area. But since the downfall of the housing market at that time, her equity in her home was like not there.
Right.
So I take her application. I'm like, yeah, there's not really much we can do for you, but I can, maybe direct you to some things you can get some help with. Right. So all of a sudden, that night I walk into this like event party, for our company. And the guy who was owning it, or running or whatever, he was like, oh, good job. You got an appraisal order. Appraisal order is like $500, but they have to pay it. And then it goes on to like your incentive, right? And I'm like, appraisal order, like for who? So he tells me, and I'm like, oh, she doesn't qualify. He's like, no, it's fine. So I'm like, okay. So like 2 or 3 days go by and she calls me and she's like super upset, right? And which I understand why. Because she doesn't have any money and she just got charged $500 for appraisal order that we knew was going to come back.
Yeah.
I walked into his office and I sat down. I was like, you're a sleazy motherfucker.
Yeah, man.
I was like, I don't fucking fuck with people like you. And he's like, well, what are you going to do? Fight me? At this time we were like fighting and shit. I was like, no, I'm just going to tell you're just a piece of shit. He's like, well, you're fired. I said, motherfucker, I already quit.
Yeah.
And I got up and left, and that's why I had to leave Atlanta and move back to Madison. Like, that decision for me was like, okay, I can't pay my bills now, but
Chapters.
I'm not going, like, forget that shit, right?
Going back to your safety net, though,
Yeah. Go back home. I got regrouped.
Yeah.
And then started shooting music videos just locally for people. Because, like, I had that experience from the Connect DD. Everybody knew who we were.
Yeah.
And me and my brother at the time opened up this media company. So I'm a networker. Like that's what I'm good at is like, I might not be the best director in the world. And I never said I was. I'm not the best like videographer in the world. But I'm a guy that will sit there and work your ass like out of this. Anybody in my competition range, like you just got to work harder than me.
Yeah.
Which is going to be impossible.
You're good at putting the people together.
Yeah, right. So I was going to all these clubs and getting people that I knew were like hustlers like me, that could get out there and like promote our business. Right. So like I'm always in these scenes. And we started doing like, bigger commercial American Family Insurance. Like I did a TED Talk and all these things. And then I got hired to fly down to Atlanta to go shoot a video for OJ the Juice Man. So we did No Hook, which was on it was on Atlanta, that show. It was like the intro song for the first episode. And that like brought his career back. He had like 10 million views on that video. So then when I get back to the city after that, it goes wild. Everybody's like, wow, why don't you shoot my music video, right?
Back to the city as in Madison?
Yeah, back to the city of Madison. So then at this time, I'm flying all over the country just like on other people's dollars, like Miami, like Dallas, like I'm going to Chicago. I'm shooting music videos for like everybody at this time.
Like who?
Like
or just local Madison?
No, I was doing like a lot of like local people. There would be like some artists down in Dallas that were trying to blow up, but then like King Louis was Chicago. I did a couple of his videos. Like I did some stuff for like Wiz Khalifa at the time. OJ, I did multiple videos for OJ the Juice Man at the time. Gorilla Zoe, like Wyclef Jean.
I just sent you a Gorilla Zoe song the other night.
Yeah.
Wyclef Jean out of New York. So like, so like it started growing.
Yeah.
But then me and my brother kind of started having like this, you know, because I'm making like most of the money in the company. And before I even got involved with him, the only reason I did is because my mom was like, oh, you should do this with your brother. Like,
oh, boy.
So when I started getting big in my city, he started getting kind of like, oh, you know, like I'm doing the same thing as you, but you ain't helping me.
Right.
So I came back and I was like, hey, like I'm trying to expand and like this building is costing me more money than I'm making. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because it was like a certain amount of money for the rent or whatever. And also too, there's just like a lot of sketchy people. We had like a recording studio and like green screen and all these things in there. There's just a lot of sketchy people coming in.
Of course.
And
I'm out.
Yeah, and they're in there all night like smoking and like I come in and it's like dirty in there. And
you're trying to build a real business.
Yeah, like
not
you can't
just stay stagnant.
Right, like I come from the Midwest, so like there's like this mentality of like I have to be a gangster if I'm black or whatever the case may be. And I wasn't really into that. Like I'm like, I want to make money.
Yeah.
And like this doesn't make money. This is like some shit you do with your friends.
Right.
I've already been through this, you know, with this DVD stuff. So at that point I just was like, all right, I quit. Like I'm out of here. So I just started traveling even more after that. Like once I was free, then I was going like all over the country, like all the city, like every city, right?
So you broke up with your brother, that media company, and then you started your own?
Yeah.
Just you?
Yeah, just me.
Oh, dude, the eagle's flying.
Yeah, and I'm like the type of person where I just keep investing into my equipment. Like I was like, okay, I might not be the best at shooting, but my stuff is like the best equipment.
Yeah.
So it looks good, you know, and those videos still after 7-8 years hold up like to other people's videos. And then after that, what did I do next? Oh yeah, so I went to LA. And why I went to LA is I went with the guy. He was like, hey, I want to do these music videos. I have an artist. His artist was John Conte. He wrote Blame It on the Alcohol and won a Grammy for that.
Wow.
So this dude was like, and he wrote the World Cup theme for Shakira, like when they did the Brazil thing.
I sing that song all the time though.
Yeah.
Like whenever you're like, whenever I'm on a trip or something and I'm like hungover.
Yeah, he wrote
and
that.
I fuck up or do something, I'm like, blame it on the rock, blame it on the Henny.
Man, damn.
So he wrote that. So we're like staying in this crib, and I had some friends that I met from doing some video stuff out in Phoenix, and they were up in LA, and they're like, hey, we have this guy, his name's Baldacci. And Baldacci, if you look him up, is like this Mexican dude who's just like all tatted all over his face. He's like from Florencia, like South Central, like just this like F-13 gang member.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm like, where are they? And he's like, South Central. I'm like, oh, all right, cool. I'll come out there and do it. Like, I don't even know what I was thinking, bro.
Going in the fucking thick of
like
it.
the trenches, bro.
Fuck yeah.
So I get out there, and Compton Menace, who was in Straight Outta Compton, he played OG Two-Tone, the guy that got on the bus, Blood. Well, in real life, he's really like that guy, right, in L.A. And we get there, and it's like a guy who's a Crip, who's Eastwood. He was on Death Row with Suge Knight and like all these other people. And I'm shooting this music video, and it like turns out dope. So like I come back to the crib where I was staying in LA. That was in Studio City, and they're like, "Oh, how was it?" I'm like, "Oh, it was pretty cool." And I start editing, and the footage is gone. And I'm like, "Oh shit!" They're like,
Like the S, like
yeah,
the card?
Dude. So they're like, "Baldacci's gonna kill you," and then I'm like, "Oh man!" So I like get this thing. Anybody out there who wants to learn how to recover, Disc Doctor is really good.
Oh, okay.
So I got Disc Doctor, and then like I downloaded each
file,
one by one. Not all of them came back, but the majority. So enough to make my music video, and then I fill it in with a little bit of filler footage, right? So I delivered that, and they're like, "This is awesome, dope." I'm like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah.
So like I fly back to Madison after that, after 2 weeks, and then I get a phone call and they're like, hey, we want you to come out to LA and like shoot our videos. We'll pay you and put you in the spot. And I'm like, all right, cool.
This is Baldacci's
Yeah,
people
yeah,
again?
Baldacci's people. So I get out there, right? And they're like 10 hours late to pick me up at the airport. I'm like, what the? It's already starting off bad. And I'm like tired. They pick me up. They're like, oh, we're going to go by the studio. I'm like, dude, I just want to get dropped off at my place. And they're like, oh, yeah, yeah. So they take me to the studio. And they're like, you're asleep here for a while. Like, we're still looking for a place for you.
Oh my!
It's like a studio like this big, and then there's a booth in the middle, and then like a little studio like this in there.
Oh no!
With a couch
way.
and just 100 people up in there. Yeah.
Oh. Fuck.
So I'm like, all right, how long is this gonna be? And they're like, oh, just a couple of days. So I'm like, all right, I guess I'll just wait it out. And it went on for like 8 weeks, bro. I was in the studio. I was like walking down to the library and doing digital art at the time before nobody was doing digital art.
Why wouldn't they let you go home?
I just decided to stay.
Oh,
and the reason
okay.
why I decided to stay, though, was because there was a lot of people coming in from big record labels.
You're making connections.
Right. I'm making these connections, but this studio was like owned by the cartel. So it was like sovereign ground type deal.
Oh,
so
yeah.
all
So
the
you got-
gang members and all the people would come in there because nobody was going to shoot it up, right?
Yeah.
And one day I wake up and there's like this little Mexican guy sitting on this couch and he's like smoking a joint. He's looking at me. I'm like, what the fuck? And he's like, hey, man, I heard you're going to be staying here. Come with me. And I'm like, damn. So like we leave and he get in his like Mercedes, throws me the keys and he's like, I need you to take me around LA and like take me to my hotels. And I'm like, all right, well, this was sketchy, but he's like, I'll give you $300 a day. And I'm like, well, what do I have to do? He's like, just drive me around. I'm like, all right. So I'm like driving this cartel, like boss around and shit.
What?
Yeah, it was like
What?
the craziest thing ever, bro.
And you said hotels.
Yeah, hotels. Like they had like mad hotels with just like sports gear inside one, like computers
Like
in the
hot
middle.
shit?
I don't know.
Oh,
I never
yeah,
got
I mean,
like
they fucking,
I never got
legit warehouse.
Yeah, it wasn't no warehouse, but like he was like, "Yo, you can stay in one of these." I'm like, "I'll stay in the studio."
Oh my
like,
God.
He's like, "Well, there's an AK underneath the pillows." So, and I lifted up like what? He's like, "If anybody comes in here, just shoot them." And I'm like, "Dude, this is not who I am. I'm
Yeah.
a camera guy."
Yeah.
But then I made
Trying to
these.
shoot music videos.
I made
not
a
shoot
T-shirt that
someone.
after that, like a real shooter.
Oh yeah.
So you probably
Like
see
the
him.
Public Enemy type shirt, but different.
Yeah,
Oh
with the
my
camera.
God. Oh yeah.
Yeah, because I was like, okay, I'm kind of a gangster now, right? But anyways, yeah, so that happened, and then it was crazy because I ended up going to one of my friend's house in South Central in Florencia, and I was like, hey, man, I just need to take a shower. I've been, like, taking showers out of the sink downstairs, like, just private parts for, like,
Whoa,
a
in the
week.
studio?
Yeah, it
damn.
sucked. It sucked. It was
Yeah.
like eating once a day. So I went out there, and then like while we're out there, there's like a drive-by shooting in their hood. So I'm like, dude, just take me home. Like, take me back to the studio. So that was like the breaking point where I was like, man, I don't know. Like, I might just have to go home. You know what I mean? This is
Yeah.
getting like too dangerous. But it was crazy because I had this dream, and like God came to me in this dream and was like, here, like it's gonna open up for you, right? So like the next day, Menace comes in, this artist who just got signed to Cash Money, and he's like, hey, I heard you're like super dope with the camera. I need somebody to do BET Weekend for me. So I like was like, all right. So like 3 days I just worked, didn't sleep or anything. Like they recorded a music video like with Birdman and all these people. I shot that music video like 20 minutes after they recorded the song with like 8 people and then had it edited before the night was over.
No way.
So at that point, they were like, we want you to be like a cameraman here at Cash Money.
Yeah.
And that's,
At Cash Money.
yeah.
And what year is this now?
That was 2016.
Oh my God! So that's six
That's when I
years
started
ago.
Rooftops.
So that's after Drake. Like that's
Yeah,
like the
yeah. No, they
height
were all
of-
there. Like Meek, Drake, Nicki, all these people.
Yeah.
Like they'd be in the studio. You know, you talk to them sometimes, see them. You know what I mean? Soldier Boy, all these people. So like, then when I got it with them, I started doing music videos for like a lot of artists. You know, that were with Universal, right?
Dude,
Yeah.
we got to get him in with Danish.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's into the music game. I think they were just at P. Diddy's place in California or something
Yeah.
like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So then after that, it was just like, you know, you're working all the time. You're like really just shooting for these artists. Like that's your job. Like we need
Right.
content. We need IG,
all sorts of content?
all sorts of content. So like pictures, you're doing everything. You're just like working. And like a lot of guys there, they started respecting me because it was like when they come back from the club, or when they be coming back from the studio, I'd be at the studio, come back, and then all night I'd just be editing. So like I was literally like sleeping like 3 hours a day for like a year.
Damn.
Like I was like on some straight
Just
insomnia.
on the grind,
like
though.
yeah.
Tunnel vision is.
But that's why they like a lot of them. After I got done with Universal and Cash Money, they like still were like, we're gonna hook you up with people because you're like the guy.
Yeah. 100%.
So like what happened was with that, it just kind of after a year, like I moved out of that studio and went up to Porter Ranch, which is in the Valley. I had a crib up there, like, and I'm working with all these artists in bigger studios now. Like we were at Paramount all the time, so it was like. It was cool, and there was a lot of like big artists. Like I knew Nipsey Hussle, like kicked it with him plenty of times. Like French Montana, like all these people, right? But it just kind of got to a point where it wasn't worth it. Like you giving up everything. Like you don't have a personal life. You don't have like they might be getting women, but you're not getting women.
Now you're working.
You're just working all the time, and you're
especially if
making
it's
people
just
rich.
You're shooting the content, then editing it.
Yeah, so you're making people rich. And when Sway Lee, I met him at Kyrie Irving's party. So like we're all together, and I had just shot this music video like in February where this guy's walking. I stop the camera and I tell everybody, okay, throw the money in there and just freeze. I'm gonna hang dollar bills from the ceiling with like fishing line. And he's gonna walk into the camera and like grab the dollar and pull it out of the air, and everything else is gonna be frozen.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's how the Mannequin challenge got like.
No way.
Right. So I'm at this party. I'm like, yeah. So Sway's like, hey, can you show me how you did that? So I'm like, yeah, for sure. So like 2 weeks, we're talking. Like he's DMing me. We're like, I'm telling him how to do all this stuff.
Sway?
Yeah, Sway.
I didn't know that he shot content. I thought he was just like a DJ.
No, but he's a rapper. So they're the ones who did the Mannequin challenge, Rob Strummer, right?
Oh,
So all of a sudden, it's November 5th, I think, and all of a sudden our text messages like on DMs and Instagram just all start getting deleted on his end. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And he's telling me, oh, I'm gonna be back. We're going to shoot this. It's going to be big. And then they did it that night, midnight, and dropped it.
No way.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. So that kind of was what the camel that broke the straw, straw that broke the camel's back was like, damn, no matter what you do, like they're just gonna take it from you.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, and they're gonna claim
you have
it.
none of the IP at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You're doing all the work. You have none of the IP.
Right.
You just, as soon as you get paid, the deal's done.
And you ain't even really getting paid a lot. Like a lot of that is just like the glamour of being part of the business.
Yeah.
Like people, you getting paid more from like an independent artist than you're ever gonna get paid from like the label.
Oh who would even want that like clout or whatever? It's because it's like.
I watched a documentary on it, and they said that like famous people, like artists and stuff like that, they don't pay shit. They're always like, oh, you get a chance to shoot my video, or you like. Then they like, because typically if like, oh, actually I know who I heard this from. It wasn't a documentary. My ex-girlfriend Ashley, she did like modeling and stuff like that down in Florida. And she said that like if you ever worked like a famous event, like they never had food for the people that were, you know what I mean? Like they just didn't take care of people. But like, she would do something for like a clothing brand. Because I remember I was like, she got invited to do like a rap video or something. I'm like, oh, why don't you go do the rap video? And she's like, I don't do rap videos because they never like give you food. You're there forever and they don't pay shit. She's like, just so you could be in a rap video. She's like, she was doing brand deals like, Venus Williams clothing line, stuff like that, making like a lot more money. And she's like, and they only work you a certain amount of hours and they're feeding everybody and like they're way nicer. She's like, you worked with like an actual artist. They like are spoiled and they think that, oh, you're lucky just to be working with me type of deal.
Gosh, I can't believe the ego.
It's bad too. Yeah. And when you work with these artists, kind of like, oh, well, if you don't like it, you can quit or you can go. I'll find another one. And I'm like, all right. So it started getting to that where I was like, well, okay. Like they came to me and they're like, well, this is what we want. And I was like, no, I'm good. And they're like, all right. So like, I was like, all right, well, I guess this is the end of our time together. Yeah. I went to the studio and said like, peace out to all the people I've been spending time with. Cause like, it's a big, like almost like a huge tribe of people who are with each other every day. Like you traveling all over with each other. So like you make a lot of friends too. So I come, go to the studio, say goodbye. I come back to the house. All my stuff is on the front yard in boxes.
Whoa.
Like packed up. And then my
Like that, huh?
money was frozen. In that meantime, too, yeah.
Frozen?
And in that meantime, I had went to China and like was doing a documentary about Asian hip hop, how hip hop affects Asian culture. So like I was over there for months, like doing that. So I had just got back, and I'm like, when I was over there, I got like $12,000, you know, to do that, right? And I'm not really getting paid nothing from y'all. So it's like, you know, like, so for me, it was like, all right, like something has to change. Like I'm doing too much work. I'm getting burnt out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I come back, all my stuff's on the front lawn. I just like, and then I try to buy a ticket, and my car wasn't going through because they had that too.
Oh my God.
So like, I sit down, man. I'm just sitting there. I just start crying. Like, what can you do? You know what I mean? Like, I worked so hard, and because for a long time I was thinking like, become a big time music video director, and you're gonna make it.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, when you come from like where I come from, that's like either your entertainment or you have a chance to go to college, and not a lot of us had that chance. You know what I mean? We went to public schools, and they weren't the greatest.
Yeah.
So I was like, dang, like I got to start over again, kind of, right?
Yeah.
Probably felt betrayed.
Yeah, like I felt like 10 years of work through all my whole time, like, because I was always doing shooting and always like grinding through this period. You know what I mean?
It's
Like,
stories like this why people do Irish goodbyes, though. Like, you always hear company and people like, they didn't even turn in their 2 weeks. But then you hear like horror stories like this, and you're like, well, you know, there's two sides to every story.
Yeah,
you know?
100%.
so I call up my mom. She's like, all right, I'll get you a plane ticket home, because it had been like 2 years since I had been back.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So that's how long it went on, like me just working every day. And so I call one of my buddies who comes and picks me up and takes me to his house, which is in Van Nuys. And like, there's a guy in the bathroom, like smoking heroin.
Whoa.
And I'm like, just drop me off at the airport, bro.
Yeah.
Like, it was like my plane didn't even leave for like till the next day at like 7 a.m. So like, I'm in the airport the whole time, like just waiting with my 2 bags I could get on, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like in there, and I got a phone call from one of my buddies. His name's KJ. KJ's with Dr. Dre and does like helps produce for Dr. Dre and like Snoop and all them. So he's like, man, you know, like Interscope wants to meet you. I told you about them. Like, Dre wants to talk to you. And I'm like, just like, Dre who? And he's like, Dr. Dre. And I'm like, man, I'm gonna be real with you, bro. I'm like, Warren, I'm out. Like, I'm going home.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just like checked out of this whole situation. Like, it's just too much for me. You know what I mean? So I go home.
I'm going to go sell cars.
Yeah, bro, I'm going to make some money or something, right?
I don't want to get sucked back in.
Yeah, like, I don't want to be there for another 2 years.
Get taken advantage
Right.
of.
So I was like, well, how much they paying? And he said some amount, and I was like, well, double that, and I'll think about it, right? And he's like, man, I don't know if they're going to do that. I said, well, I ain't doing it, then I'm getting on a plane. So I like travel back home. I'm living in my mom's house, like in this little room.
Yeah.
And I just ain't even leaving it. I'm depressed at this time. Wow. But people at night, like in my city, I got inducted in my high school Hall of Fame, and like I'm big there. You get what I'm saying? So like everybody's like, oh, come on, let's party.
Yeah.
So like then that turned into where I'm partying every night. It's on like other people's dimes, and you know, everybody thinks you're like this superstar because you've been with superstars.
Yeah.
But then after months go by, they start to realize like, man, this dude might not be going home.
He's still here.
Yeah, like, why are you still here, right? Yeah.
Right.
So like, I remember there was like a situation with a friend, and he said something to somebody, and I remember just being like, you know what, you're right. I didn't even get mad. I just was like, all right, yeah. You're right. I am too, like, maybe I am messing up. It's kind of like with the Dwayne Wade part, right? So I had to take my own advice.
Oh, yeah, shit.
So I just got on the
Circle
computer.
back, man.
Yeah, go back to what you learned, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So I got on the computer and just started searching like colleges. Like, I want to go back to school. I'm 32 years old by this time.
Wow.
So like I'm applying for like NYU. I'm applying for New York Film Academy. All these academies like LA Film Academy. I'm UCLA, and they're like hitting me back like, you're too old. You haven't been in college long enough. So I'm like calling them though every day because that's just who I am.
Yeah, of course.
You know, if you can sit on the phone and make 500 calls a day to people for refinancing their home, which is the most important decision they're ever going to make, and you can talk them into it, then
Talking school into letting you come.
Yeah, right.
100%.
Especially after the experience I had too, I was like, well, I might not have been in school, but I've experienced more than any of your kids will ever experience.
Right.
So New York Film Academy, there was a guy named Sam who worked there, and I would call him like every day. And finally, like 2 weeks later, he was like, all right, I found something for you. And it was like their accelerated program.
Wow.
So the accelerated program is 14-hour days in New York City, like school. So that doesn't
Everything
leave,
in New York City is 14 hours a day.
yeah, but it doesn't leave much time to get money, right?
Right.
So like I had some money saved up, like I had like 15 grand saved up, and then my grandfather who passed away was like, here, I'll give you 15 too. So like he was like, after that, just figure it out.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, cool. So I'm like, when do I start? This is like July. They're like, well, it starts in August. Like you need to make this payment and then come to New York City, find a crib. I'm like,
Damn.
yeah, you know, like I don't have any time. So I like, and it was like literally like a month I had. So I pay it, get on a plane, go out there, and I find a stay hotel on 99th and Broadway. And I'm like, okay, cool. This stay hotel's all right for a while. I'm going to get an apartment. I ended up staying there the whole 2 years.
Wow.
Whoa.
Because it was like, they clean your room. You
Oh,
ain't never in your room
yeah.
anyway. You're in New York City. I'm never home.
Right.
So like I come back, my bed would be made. It was like a hotel.
Yes.
And then also the people who owned it, like I started working for them at night, like at the counter. So I'd do my homework there and then just watch and check people in. So they're giving me like a discount. And then I was flying people in from all over the United States to do music videos in New York. It was like the
No
best.
way.
And I'm in the film program.
Yeah.
So I got the equipment.
Oh, yeah, nice.
That's so crazy.
So I'm
how,
making
like,
more
God
money than
orchestrates.
yes. So I'm making more money going to school than I was working for Universal.
No way.
Yeah, I'm making like $10,000 a month there, bro.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I graduate, and then I was like, all right, I need to like get some money now, like re-up and then refocus, right? So I get asked to go on this tour for like 4 months. So like at this time, YSL and Gunna and all them, they're on tour. So I ended up going on tour and doing like House of Blues, and we went like followed their butt. Like at first we were on the buses, and I was like, I can't be on these buses.
Oh, wow.
Why?
Because there was just too many people on the bus, and like I like
It's like
to.
a sardine
I'm tired.
can?
Yeah, I want to go to sleep. I'm
Yeah.
older now. I'm not like a young man no more. So I'm like, all right. My mom has a timeshare, so she's like, well, when you're traveling, just use the timeshare. So I'm staying in nice places, like little resorts. You know what I mean?
Nice.
And I'm traveling. We're going back from Atlanta to LA, all these different cities and back. So we had to do 2 tours in that 4 months from East Coast to the West Coast. So you going up in all the cities.
No
Yeah.
way.
And then you got to do it one more time before Christmas and go back.
Wow.
So I'm in Atlanta, and I'm like sitting down with this Byron, who's the manager of UGK, and then Wu-Tang's manager. And one of them says like, oh, he does movies? Like he went to school for movies. And I'm like, yeah, technically I know how to make a movie.
Yeah.
And they're like, man, you know, there's a story up in New York City about this rapper named Big L. I don't know if y'all know who Big L is, but Big L was murdered in 1999. So he's like, man, I'll hook you up with somebody up there and you can get this story and write it, the movie. And I'm like, all right. So I'm like, drive from Atlanta. We go out to Vegas, you know, stopping along the way a month. And then I get to Vegas. It's Christmas Eve. We do the last show. I fly home, have dinner with my family, and then fly out to New York City the next day.
Wow.
Wow.
And I go up to Sing Sing Penitentiary.
Yeah.
So I drive up to the penitentiary to meet some guy.
Max?
Yeah, Max.
Whoa.
Fuck.
Yeah. I ain't never been to Sing Sing Penitentiary. I pull up, and the guy I was with didn't have an ID that was like, it was expired. So they wouldn't let him in. So he's like, just go in there and talk to this guy. So I
That was like your chaperone?
yeah.
The guy with the Connect inside?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
So I'm like, dude, I walk up in there, and there's this guy sitting there, and he's like, man, I want some chicken wings. I was like, all right, cool, whatever. I'll buy him like a soda, some chicken wings. He just started talking to me. And he's like, yeah, man, Big L, you know, he was this rapper who came up and like won this rap battle that was like 3,000 people. And he's just telling me the story about this kid, right? And then he got murdered. I'm like, okay. And he's like, yeah, I can introduce you to his nephew. I'm like, all right, cool. So he's like, here's his address. It was on paper. So I typed this address in, called the phone, drive from Sing Sing, which is like 3 hours. And then I drive down to Harlem. 125th is where I get to 125th in Harlem, and I make that phone call. And he's like, I'll see you in a minute. Meet me up here. And he was on 139th and Lenox, which is called the Danger Zone. That's what it's called in Harlem.
Whoa.
And it's like 3 a.m. I don't know anybody in Harlem. I'm in the most roughest, gangsters place ever.
Yeah.
But that's how I knew that I was like protected by God. Like all these things I've been through.
Yeah.
Like I was like, I've never had a problem.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? So I show up, this kid comes out with this hoodie on, and I'm like, dang, about to get robbed for the first time, right? He takes out his hoodie. Hey, how you doing? My name's Leroy. And that was his nephew. And I was like, oh, hey, nice to meet you. And Leroy, a little bit about him, he was like A$AP Rocky and Ferg's like one of their best friends. So their first music videos were being shot in his house. And New York City, Big L is like, he's a legend. Like he has a mural there on 140th and Lenox. Me and the family got the street renamed to Lamont Coleman Way. That just happened this year in May, which was a big accomplishment. That took us a long time. We had his landmark, his mural is landmark now, so they can't tear it down. Yeah. So there's like a lot of work we had to do, and this was 2018. We started working on that, right? And so we're working on it. He's like, yeah, I need a script, but I have this other guy who said he could do the movie, and I know a little bit about movies at this time just from going to school, so I know the business side. And I'm like, oh no, he's not really doing it right. You know what I mean? He's like, what you mean? I'm like, this is not how you make movies, bro. And he's like, well, he invited me to go out to LA. I'm gonna go. Are you coming? I was like, nah, just call me when you get back. So he goes out there and he calls me when he's out there. He's like, man, you was right. This is some bullshit. Yeah. I was like, all right, well, what do you want to do? He's like, can you do this? I was like, yeah, I can get this done for you. So he's like, all right, we need a script. You mind if I have a little?
Oh, that's yours.
All right, cool. I'm talking a lot. It's a lot of story to get done.
Oh, man, no, this is the best. Yeah, no.
The little bit of time that we have. But
and, like, nowhere near as cool, but I did sell door to door, and so I've traveled a lot like you, but it wasn't doing cool shit, you know? Like, I was selling something. So you're, like, in the music industry. You're, like, doing cool things. So this is one of the best stories I've heard. Yeah,
it actually gets better. It's it's a crazy story, but it gets better. So I'm like, yeah, sure. So I write... This is my first script I ever did. Yeah. So I write 1,000 pages to the story just from calling people that knew him and just getting information and then doing my own research online. So I write 1,000 pages. I'm like, damn, this is a long script. You know, I don't know how long scripts are supposed to be at this time. So I'm thinking, he's like, oh man, this is like a lot. And I'm like, well, maybe we can do like a mini series or something. He's like, well, I think we want to do a movie. So I'm like, all right. So then I get a hold of this woman her name was Philippa Davis, and she worked for like Hype Williams for a long time, and then was like connected to the guy his name's Priest Holmes. He's the one who did New Jack City and all these movies. So she's like, well, I think it needs to be like 120 pages. So I'm like, all right. So like I condensed the story to 120 pages, right? And I get the story done, and how I wrote it was, it's like a hip hop horror story. So what I did was make it based off of true horror. So I wrote the movie based off Kendrick Lamar's song "Fear" off his album "Damn." Yeah. So what I did was just take all the situations, and then for the murders that I couldn't it wasn't proven that some of these murders happened and these people did it, right? The murders would happen, but they couldn't prove who did it. Right. So you can't just like say they did it, even if you know the truth, because they have family, they have people that care about them still, even if they're not around, right? To defend them.
It has to be a fictional story.
So what I did was put a white horse in there, which is this car. It's like a white Ford or a white Lincoln. And it's like this car of death.
Just gave me chills.
And the only one that can see it is Lamont, the rapper, right? He's the only one that can see it. But what I do is when the murders happen, that car will be in the vicinity, or a person that he's talking to has that same car. Everybody in the movie pretty much has a car that looks like that, right? Yeah. So you can spin it a certain way. You can make it seem like, I'll leave it up to you as the viewer, but I'm still going to display what happened. Right. I'm still going to show you the gruesomeness. It just might be somebody has a helmet on, or somebody's in a car and you don't really, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I had to do things too to protect the family and protect people. Yeah.
So now, are you going to tell the part, I'm sorry to interject, but when Big L saw his first...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm going to get into that. Okay. Yeah, so this name of this movie is called The Big Loss. Uh-huh. So Big L, Big Loss, right? Mm-hmm. It's like we keep losing artists to this thing called hip hop, and it's been happening for a long time, right? Yeah. And it's, as it continues to keep going, Takeoff, Nipsey, like all these people.
Was PJ Rock or something Rock? PNN Rock or something like that.
There's been a lot of them, man. Yeah. I mean, Biggie, Tupac. Yes, just some huge artists, right? Right. So I ended up, through that, talking to one of my friends from the West Coast, and his good friend was Dr. Dre's best friend. And they have the same legal team because of Dr. Dre. So he's like, hey, I want to fly you out here and introduce you to this legal team that I think if they could represent you, they're like number 5. They're like top 5 in the world. They represent Jamie Foxx, Jay-Z, all these people.
Wow.
So I called the guy, Leroy, and I'm like, Leroy, we're going out to LA. We're going to get this legal team and we're going to get going on this movie and get the funding. And he's like, for real? He said, when you going? I said, no, we're going. And he's like, all right. But you know what the crazy thing? I'm going to get into the story, right? The night before, he never did this. So he calls me and he's like, man, like, I'm scared kind of, dog. And it's like 2 a.m.
That's the night before you guys are leaving?
Yeah. No, the night before I called him and let him know the good news. He calls me just out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what you afraid of? And he's like, man, I don't know, man. Like, you think this really gonna happen? I said, yeah, bro. And he's like, man, I'm trying to be like you, man. I like how you like take care of everybody and take care of business. I was like, bro, like, we gonna do this together. Don't worry about it. I'm gonna take everything and get it. Because there's a lot of work over time too, right?
Right.
Like a year of doing the script, calling people I knew, putting together all my connections.
Yeah.
So it's like my first time producing a big movie, like a movie that's gonna be big. So I was like, hang up with him, and you know, that day that I told him we're gonna fly out, I'm like, just send me your information so I can get your plane ticket. And this was like 2 weeks before I went out to New York and signed the agreement with him to do the movie. And I go to sleep 25 minutes later, like I wake up and I got text messages on my phone, and they're like, your friend has been like shot, like he got killed today in Harlem. And I'm like, like in my mind, I'm thinking like, you got to be kidding, like.
Yeah.
Damn.
So I like was like, what? Wait, like how you know? Because one of my guys out there in New York who's connecting the hip hop business was like, nah, like he got killed today. And I'm like, I just talked to him. So I start texting him, man, what's up? Call me. No response. I'm like, so I called the precinct up there, the 36th precinct, and I'm like, hey, was there a murder today on 139th and Lenox? And they're like, well, there was, but we can't, disclose the information yet. So like at that point, I just was like, go on Facebook. That's the first place that you can get like that information from friends and family. I just started searching because I didn't know any of his friends and family. I just knew him. So I started seeing it, and I'm like, damn, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there, man. I remember I'm like crying because I'm like, dude, after like a year of knowing him, I was like, man, he's a good dude. You know what I mean? And his mom calls me at like 9 o'clock at night. I ain't never talked to her before that. And she's like, hey, like, I'm here. I'm sitting down with the family. It's all girls now. And she's like, we know what you were doing with my son. And like, we love you for that. Like how you've taken care of things. And like, we want to let you know we're still behind you. Wow. So like after he died, everybody came out of the woodworks because Big L was with Digging in the Crates, which was like Fat Joe and like Laura Finesse and all these guys.
Yeah.
Cameron, he was in, Big L was part of Children of the Corn who made Cameron and Mace. So like Big L was big.
Yeah.
And
you were saying like he was with
he was with Biggie. He went on tour with Biggie, and there's a song called One More Chance by Biggie. Then there's a song called MVP by Big L. Now you can on this show play MVP. That came out before One More Chance, and you'll see what I'm talking about. But they're on tour together. Biggie flies into New York City, does One More Chance, goes back to tour with Big L. That song's released in the Tunnel, which was Funk Master Flex. And when Big L comes back off that tour, he doesn't have a deal with Columbia anymore. They dropped him.
Whoa.
Yeah, and it was because of that song. They're like, you don't have a single no more.
Damn.
Yeah. So like, there's a lot of things that went into like why Big L's not like Jay-Z right now.
Yeah. Wow.
But so I get off that phone call, and then I fly out to L.A., meet with this legal team. They're like, I've sat them for like 2 hours and just tell them this story. And they're like, all right, we'll represent you. And they hadn't taken on any clients for like 20 years.
No way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So now they've been representing me for 5 years. And so after that, I was like, all right, worked on this movie, tried to pitch it to a bunch of places. And like, people are like, well, Big L's not a huge name. I'm like, but this story is like, huge. It's huge right now. Like, think about it. His grandfather was murdered in the 70s on that block.
Yeah.
His brother was murdered on that block. He was murdered on that block. And then his nephew recently, 2 years ago, was murdered on that block.
Wow.
So it's a generational curse.
Right.
Damn.
Right? And it's like 2 weeks before, when he got shot, Big L, he was gonna sign a contract with Rockefeller to be a part owner of Rockefeller. Like a partner, like a partner.
This was like when they were just
because him and Jay were real big. And if you go on, what was that show? Stretch and Bobbito. So the Stretch and Bobbito show was like a big hip hop show in New York City back in the '90s. Well, there's like a time where Big L's on the radio with Jay-Z, brings Jay-Z to the radio station. They're like, if you listen to the interview, who are you? And he's like, Jay-Z. And they're like, oh, okay. And like Big L was the guy.
Damn.
And he's like, I'm Jay-Z, da-da-da. And like, oh, what label do you have? Rockefeller. Like, oh, it's independent. Like, so you listen to that interview and Big L's like, oh, this is my guy. Like, this is my guy. He's dope. So Harlem World, that was Big L. So when Mace went, this is why Big L.
My first album I ever bought was Bad Boy.
This is why Big L and Mace fell out, is because Mace went and signed a deal with Bad Boy, but we already know now what happened with the Biggie situation.
Right.
Damn, that was in like 97 or 98.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Damn.
Mm-hmm. So like, there's all these things that go into this hip hop history.
Yeah, that you have no idea, like the underlying, like dramatic story that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Damn.
And I like got to soak it all up and talk to all these people and like
now get to tell that story.
And so what happened after that? I went to Chicago because I like met a girl and like was like, okay, I'm gonna go to Chicago. Like I really like this girl. So I'm in Chicago and like, I found out I didn't really like her that much. So
that does happen.
Yeah, so COVID happened, and then I was like, well, everything shut down in Chicago, and one of the guys that I'm associated with now here, he's been here for 25 years. So it's like, you should come out to Boise, and like you can stay at my house and like, you know, just get some like take care time, you know what I mean? Because I had been working for like ever, it seemed like, you know. Yeah. And when I was here, I wrote 168 movies.
Wow.
While I was here. So now I own 168 movies. The Lawrence Taylor miniseries with Sony is what I'm doing. I just wrote the Straight Outta Compton spinoff. During that time, produced a movie with James Cameron, Keanu Reeves, and Halle Berry, Mark Wahlberg. I'm writing a project called 301 Racing, which is about the first black IndyCar company. So you've seen Pimp My Ride? Yeah. So Exhibit, the guy, his name was Mark Lauder, who was the guy who was building all those cars. Yeah. And Exhibit,
I used to watch the shit out of that show.
Yeah, Exhibit got involved with that, but that guy had an IndyCar company too.
The guy, is Mark the guy that owns West Coast Customs?
He owned 301 Racing, but they did all the, like, they're the ones who were doing all that, like, customization at that time for, like, Mark Wahlberg and all these guys, right? Yeah. So that movie will be starring Mark Wahlberg and Michael B. Jordan. I'm writing that now currently, too. So
and it's already, you've sold these.
Yeah, well, I have 2 with Sony right now. I turned the deal down with Fox, and this is a funny thing of how I got the deal with James Cameron and Keanu Reeves. Is I get a phone call from one of my buddies out there in LA, and they're like, "Hey, Fox 20th Century is looking for a movie that fits this." And I'm like, he's like, "Do you have anything?" Because I got tons of movies, right? I got TV series, I got mini series, I got all types of content. Damn. So I'm like, no, but I can write you one in 2 days. And he's like, no, I need a picture on Wednesday. And I'm like, yeah, I can write it for you and have it edited. And then I'll send it out, the lookbook and everything with the budget and the schedule. I'll have it done for you in 3 days. Damn. Which, like, picture decks cost like $20,000 to do. I just have a team where over this last 2 years, I've been teaching them how to do all of these things. Wow. You know, because I had design background. You know, I've been doing my own scripting for music videos my whole life. Right. So for me, it was always just natural. Yes. Like, I don't have to sit there and like think about writing a script. I have a process, and that process works every time. Right. So I write the movie in 2 days. We get the lookbook done. We worked like 48 hours straight to do it, though. So we get it out to them. The president of Fox 20th Century calls us all, and he's like, I love this. This is great, because they even gave me the budget of what they wanted me to write it in. So what I did was write a story about a woman and a man. It's called Blue Velvet. And in my mind, how I was doing it was like, remember River Phoenix? Yes. So I kind of took his like story of his last night, and I made this nightclub, and all these things happen in this nightclub that have to do with these 2 people. And he ends up robbing a guy, like one of the owners of that bar, who's like a mob guy. Damn. And now they're trying to figure out how to get the fuck out of town. But his girl is trying to save his life, and their plans get mixed up, and he ends up getting killed.
Whoa.
So like all these things happen though just in 2-3 locations.
Right.
But it's a great story.
Yeah.
So they're like, we love this, we want to buy it. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, I want this, this, and this. They weren't expecting me to have like my legal and having like.
Oh yeah, of course.
They didn't expect me to know this business because they've never heard of me.
Right.
So they tried to screw me over, and I was like, nah, we're good. So we walked away from that deal, and there was some good money on the table, but I was like, I'd rather just own it.
Yeah.
So we walk away from it. I get a call 2 days later from James Cameron's protege. So he's been with James Cameron for like 10 years. He's like, hey, this is, blah, blah, blah. Did you really write this in 2 days? I said, yeah. And he's like, this is amazing. I got a project I want you to write and like work on with me, with James and like Keanu. And I'm like, for real? And he's like, yeah. So then that's how that happened.
Holy shit! Yeah, fucking John Wick 5.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's crazy because that's how he knew Keanu was through John Wick. So they do Tyrant Tactical out there.
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah, that's one of the things we want to do.
So he is like best friends with the owner of that, and they do the John Wick training. So that's how he knew Keanu.
Oh, really?
Yeah, man. So it just happened to be like, I have for all my experience and all these things I've done, I have these talents of being able to write and then also having a connection with.
I've always wanted to get into writing like movies and stuff like that. I've told you about the one that I like think is the best, just stories from when I was selling door to door and stuff, and calling the show Knocking Doors.
Oh yeah, that's a good title too.
Yeah, and then I even told them I even have the intro to it. Which is wheels in the sky keep on turning, and it just keeps showing like each character doing something goofy, and then like their name splashes on the thing. But I mean, like just stories that I experienced selling door to door. Yeah, some like rated R, some scary, some like man, I did it for a while. So
it could be like a diary type deal.
Yeah,
like where you have different experiences through.
And each episode, it doesn't necessarily always have to be something scary or something like there was a lot of just a lot of emotion, making people cry, helping people, just a lot of things. And so I've always, I wanted it to be on HBO though, because I want to get like the full effect of like the shit that I saw, like Jennings County Road, like the zombies. So that's where I think like some of those areas, all those drug addicts and stuff, like that's where the zombies are going to come from,
I just wrote a zombie movie.
Oh, for real?
Yeah. But it's a TV series.
Damn,
So what we did was like we mixed it with John Wick meets like Body Snatchers.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I was like, I don't believe in like zombies could raise up from the dead, but maybe like an alien worm or something that might work, So
infected.
Yeah, but
dude, go to Jennings County, bro. Those people are full blown like, and the thing is, it's all prescription drugs. It's not heroin like everybody thinks, right? It's Opana, which is a prescription heroin. Basically, they call them beans.
Okay.
And like, no joke, you got 200 people out on the sidewalk, like. They move like zombies. Their like hair's missing, like skin is picked off, and they're like, oh.
Yeah, that could be cool too.
Like, dude, and people that live in there, like, I can't remember this guy. I remember a lot of people's names, but this one guy, I remember, he's probably wearing a vest like this, pants hella high, like tucked in. Kind of a goofy guy, and he's like, man, you get the best blowjob you ever had. You just go across the street, $5, Like I remember shit like that.
Nowhere?
Well, I mean, I was talking to him and stuff.
I was when I was in Atlanta, I was doing the OJ video, and we're like in the hood and like flat shows, and he's like, there's like naked people in like dumpsters taking like baths out of the dumpster, like crackheads.
Wild shit, dude. Yeah.
And he says one guy's name was what was his name? Flip, I think, or some Skip or some shit.
Yeah.
He comes over and he's like, man, I got my spaceship, and he's all fucked up. And OJ's like, man, he used to own the bank down the street. Like,
no
yeah.
way.
Yeah, and then we're sitting in the hood, and one dude's like pulling, he got, there's like crackheads around, they're like pulling on a generator for me, and one's like, put your mouth on there and start that motherfucker. I was just like, where are we? Like, what is going on? There's like little kids, like 12-year-olds with like guns, like the little biker group with guns.
Yeah, dude, it's
like
crazy.
There was like
little
a dude
selling
in the
drugs.
Thing, like he's fanning his gun from my camera. I'm like, bro, what the hell? Like,
yeah, little kids selling drugs.
Yeah,
all sorts of shit.
I've seen some wild shit.
Yeah. Did you ever? like through all these examples, you know, South Central, Atlanta, New York, you know, I know you talked about when you first got to Harlem, you know, feeling the protection of God.
Mm-hmm.
Was there ever situations where like you were like, fucking, did you ever feel fearful?
Man, you know,
because you had some you great connections.
I think you always have that. I mean, it's instinct. You're always going to have instinctual like tension when you're in a dangerous place. So you're always going to be like aware.
Right.
Like I never was not aware of my surroundings.
Yes.
But I never felt like it was going to be my time.
Right.
You know, I don't know if other people do feel that way when they get in those situations. I don't know. But for me, I just know that the path of where I've been, where I started and where I'm going, it hasn't changed. Like God is always through that time. Like even with the, you know, one of the skills I have, one of the, I guess not even skills, but gifts I have is being able to control my dreams.
What?
Yeah, so I build, like my wife will tell you, I build environments in my dreams where I can go there. Like I have like cities in my dreams that they
like Inception.
Every time though. Like it's not
you
like
can go right back to
it.
Yeah,
and then I can wake up in the middle of the night, go to the bathroom, get something to eat, and then go back into it.
Dude, I do that same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as you start to focus on that, the more powerful it becomes.
Of course, because now you're expecting
Right.
it. So you're like very lucid.
Right. And yeah, lucid and very like everything I think about, I file in those spaces, and I can go back into those spaces and bring back a memory and be able to go and write it.
Holy shit.
So like my wife would tell you, I keep like a recorder by my bed where I wake up and just, okay, this is what happened. And it's like 30, 40 minutes.
Oh, so then that's even like compounding the effect, because now you're in this reality.
Yeah.
You're reciting back what you remembered from
Right,
that.
exactly. Because there's dual reality that we, you know,
100%,
like.
I do the same thing.
Yeah, like if you look at my
I
phone,
have lots of
it's
notes.
like thousands. Like, because I started a long time ago just journaling, and then I don't journal anymore because all of it now is just like in those spaces that I've been able to create. I remember when I was young, you know, I was like super creative, super imaginative. And I remember they were like, oh, he has like attention deficit. He doesn't know how to pay attention. But like one thing that they don't take into account is like you pay attention to what is interesting.
Of course.
Like it's not interest. Like math wasn't ever anything I was going to get involved with because I was never interested in it.
You're creative.
Right.
You're imaginative.
Exactly.
Yeah, I have all of them, and it's the same thing. Like I did it this morning. I was having a dream, and I woke up, took a piss at like, I don't know, 2:30 or something, and then I was like, oh, I remember right where I left off. Closed my eyes, and it was like I started over at that same spot. I gotta start
doing that because I heard or read or whatever that if you do that, it makes your dreaming even stronger.
Yeah.
Because like you're saying, you're taking notes of what you were just.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Dude.
So like everything that I've been able to build, it's like I'm building it in my sleep as well. So I'm not like just working on it while I'm awake. While I'm sleeping, it's being worked on.
Oh, man.
So like when I start writing, it's already been something that I've already thought out all the way.
And seen, you lived it pretty much.
Right.
Yeah.
So the vision is there, the color's there, the tone of the settings are there. So when I start writing a script, and that's why I've been able to write 168 of these things in 2 years.
Yeah.
And they're all great. Like I have my script analysis, the person who does all my script analysis is Quentin Tarantino's script analysis person.
No way.
So like I know they're...
So one's filling you full of shit.
Yeah, and then also Eric Roth, who wrote Forrest Gump and Benjamin Button, he's asked me to write a movie for his son.
Whoa.
His people have.
That's insane, dude.
Yeah, and he has 2 Oscars, or 3 of them or something for writing. But I was like, no, I don't want to write for you either because I'm going to write this story and not going to get any